the Monday after Tyson Fury lifts the crown for the heavyweight championship of the world off of Vladimir Klitschko. So what did you think about that, Barry?
I thought it was an amazing contest for lots of different reasons. I mean, obviously, I think along with most people, we all pretty well back Klitschko to win. Some of us with great comfort, and Tyson Fury, I have to take my hat off to his preparation, both before the fight and after the fight. They did just about everything perfect. They got it right, and their tactics were spot on. But, you know, he won the fight. I was so pleased he got the decision, because I was thinking, after watching the fight, please don't let the judges take it away from him, because boxing doesn't need that. But, you know, it's part of this overall renaissance of British boxing. When was the last time we had 12 world champions? You know, it's quite remarkable, and the fact is, you know, there's nothing bigger than the World Heavyweight Championship. So to have an upset result like that, and it was an upset, although it was very well deserved, that gives another little boost to boxing, not just to Tyson Fury and the heavyweight title, but to boxing in general.
Well, that's right. I mean, I was tweeting out at the time, and I was saying, well, Tyson's won it, but is this got controversial result written all over it? And then I said, congratulations to everyone, not least the judges, for getting it right.
Yeah.
But moving on, well, Klitschko, did he show up? What happened?
He didn't show up at all, did he? Now, I don't know whether the mind games before the fight affected him. That's possible, but unlikely. I think the real reason was, this is this is the biggest opponent that Vladimir Klitschko's ever boxed. And he boxed a live opponent, someone who came there believing they were going to win and prepared to work to win. And he's not used to that. And I think on that basis, you know, you have to take your hats off to the Fury camp for getting their tactics just right. And it looked to me, it's all very well say, you know, did Klitschko get old? He looked gun shy. And gun shy doesn't mean necessarily you got old. It means that you're concerned about going forward and throwing that punch because you're worried about what you're going to take at the same time. And he wasn't prepared to make that commitment. And that was disappointing. I think Vitaly Klitschko was probably more upset than Vladimir was, because it was almost embarrassing to be a Klitschko fan and watch him so comprehensively outworked by someone without the experience that obviously the great man had.
Yeah, and without being nasty, I mean, you can't actually say that apart from movement, Tyson actually worked very hard.
Well, he worked hard in movement, but as you say, he didn't actually throw a huge number of punches, but he seemed to have an answer for anything that Vladimir, and he did enough to get under Vladimir's skin, or to stop him working, or to make him think twice about throwing a shot. I really couldn't believe that after 10, 11 years of reign, that someone of the reputation of Vladimir Klitschko could let his title go with so little effort. And I'm taking my hat off to Tyson Fury, because he was the one that took away his heart and his desire. But it was a strange way to end a decade of dominance.
So with your knowledge of the boxing world, do you think a rematch happens?
Well, it's part of the contract. I understand they're already contracted for a rematch, but whilst Vitaly Klitschko, the brother, was saying, we want a rematch, I didn't see the same enthusiasm from Vladimir Klitschko. And frankly, if that is all that Vladimir Klitschko has got to offer, number one, it has very little commercial appeal, and number two is, why take it? You know, you've made your money. If you got old, or if you just lost the desire, or if you were outboxed and outthought, the second fight's going to have no different whatsoever. So if Vladimir Klitschko looks in the mirror and says, you know what, I've had a great run, I would advise him to pack it up and let Tyson move on to other defences.
Moving further on a little bit, what an exciting time, not only for British boxing, which you've already alluded to, but for heavyweight boxing in Britain. Because apart from Fury, we've got your ace in the hole, Anthony Joshua, who's fighting Dillian White shortly, and we've got David Haye coming back into the fray. Now, first of all, before we go on to your man, let's talk about David Haye. What do you think about that comeback?
I'm a little bit sceptical at the moment. Not because David's not a great fighter, but he's had 3 years out of the ring. It's a long time. Number one is he was never a big heavyweight. In fact, a lot of people say he was never heavyweight. Is he going to come back at heavyweight this time? I understand, but he's talking about perhaps wanting to fight Tony Bellew going in through, which is, you know, cruiserweight. As I say, David's got a terrific record. He won the world title. Does he really want to come back on that? He's got to rebuild. If he's prepared to build himself over 2, 3, 4 fights to show he's up there? Or is he thinking of coming back, one warm-up and jumping in for a pile of money? Well, the pile of money doesn't exist at the moment. I think already Tyson Fury said no, because David messed him about a bit last time. Where else is he going to go? Voluntary defence, he's a good fighter, so people are not necessarily going to choose him as a voluntary defence. Mandatory, he's not mandatory with any of the governing bodies. So he's got to earn it. Is he prepared to pay the price over the next 6 to 9 months to earn the right? And we'll see, because there are some big fights out there for David if he's serious about his comeback. And whether it's Anthony Joshua, whether it's maybe Tyson Fury in time, who knows? But there's some interesting domestic fights. You know, David Price is still out there, Chisora's still out there, both of them with the Sauerlands. They would be a good stepping stone to see what David has got left to offer. But when you're out for 3 years, it's not straightforward as that.
I always like interviewing you because you always tee me up for the next question before I get there. So you mentioned Anthony Joshua as an outside chance for a future fight, but first things first, he's got Dillian Whyte coming up very quickly. Some people are saying a crossover fight, his first real test. What are your thoughts on that?
I really believe they're right. I think this is his first big test. I know a lot of people around there thinking that Anthony Joshua has only got to turn up to win any fight, and of course that's not true in heavyweight boxing. He's actually had a tougher 14-fight start to his career than Lennox Lewis, Vitaly Klitschko, David. He's had. If you look at his first 14 opponents, they've been at a different level to Mike Tyson. We'll go back and analyse their early fights, but it's still part of the learning curve. Dillian Whyte, in my view, represents a highly dangerous fight. I think Dillian Whyte, again, people get involved with the AJ hype, and I'm a big believer in the ability of AJ, but not at the expense of being complacent or ignoring the reality of the situation. Dillian Whyte is undefeated. He's what I call off the street. He's a tough guy in life, so he's not going to swallow it in the ring. He's not coming there to get beat. Now, he may get beat. The bookmakers will tell you he will get beat, but you can't take it easy. His hand speed is not quite as fast as AJ's. I don't think his power is quite as good as AJ's. But the thing is, it's a marginal difference, and you ignore that at your peril. You have to give Dillian Whyte respect. I think this is AJ's toughest fight. He comes through this. I don't think there's a domestic fighter out there that will give AJ a problem. But I think this is a test.
So I know it's very dangerous looking ahead, but when can the fight fans, who they all assume AJ is going to come through this fight, when can they sort of expect, subject to that all happening, the big fights down the line?
Well, I think it's so nice to say that's down to AJ, it's down to Rob McCracken, down to his training team, down to my son Eddie Hearn. They just come to me when I write the cheque out. It's quite basic. He is definitely got to focus on Dillian Whyte on December the 12th. And it is dangerous, but if you get past that, you've really got to be now looking at eliminators for world titles to get yourself positioned commercially in the 4 or 5 governing bodies that matter, so that you have options, because otherwise you'll be held to blackmail. Now, Tyson Fury has got 4 of the belts. Deontay Wilder's got 1. There's a lot of mandatory positions around there that I think we could position AJ in, which means in 6 to 9 months he would have a choice of where he wants to go. The problem AJ's got is, frankly, he brings more money to the table than any other heavyweight in the world, because he has the backing of Sky TV and pay-per-view. And that's not to say that Tyson Fury isn't world champion, he is, but we're talking commercially, and sometimes that's a different world. AJ has Sky's backing. Now, that's a hell of an armament to have when it comes to negotiations, because we pay more than America. So Deontay Wilder, who's earning, decent money, we could pay far bigger money than America to Deontay Wilder to come over. Obviously, Tyson Fury and AJ, put them together, I don't think that should be rushed, because I think that's a huge fight when it happens that's going to make both of them wealthy for the rest of their life. So there's no tearing rush on that. The caveat being, can you just avoid, both of you boys, avoid getting beat before then, because the money's out the window. But there are lots of options out there. There is no wealth of heavyweights out there, let's be frank. America is like a desert of heavyweights. Deontay Wilder is head and shoulders the best heavyweight in America, and frankly, I don't think he's all that.
And we've got everyone else.
There's some Eastern Europeans, Pavotkin, these type of guys who are decent fighters. They're sort of fighters that I look on as a defence fighter. You know, decent, credible fighter, but they're not going to excite. David Haye is the sort of loose cannon within that mix. And until he has 1 or 2 fights, no one's really going to take him seriously.
And no one's going to know.
No one's going to know about him because it's 3 years ago, and the old Jewish phrase is, "What have you done for me lately?"
Barry, as always, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.